When the Roman officer who stood facing him saw how he had died, he exclaimed, "This man truly was the Son of God." Mark 15:39. The final moments of Jesus' life are recorded in Mark 15:33-39. His path to the cross had been torturous. He had been abandoned, ridiculed, humiliated, and tortured. Now, as he hangs on the cross, Jesus breathes his last breath. Mark 15:33. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. This otherworldly darkness arrived when the sun was shining highest. Because the moon was now full, it couldn't have been created by an eclipse. The moon can't intervene between the earth and the sun when it's full. This darkness was undoubtedly brought about by God's prompt intervention. Phlegon of Tralles and Emperor Hadrian's freedman gives a description of it. Eusebius, in his Records of the Year AD, quotes extensively from Phlegon, who claims that in the 4th year of the 202nd Olympiad, a large and extraordinary eclipse of the sun occurred, surpassing any that had previously occurred. At the 6th hour, the day was turned into the darkness of night, so that stars were seen in the heaven. There was a great earthquake in Bithynia, which overthrew many houses in the city of Nicaea. Phlegon attributes the darkness to an eclipse, which was natural enough for him to do since astronomy knowledge was rudimentary at the time. An earthquake is also mentioned by Phlegon, putting his story in very close alignment with the sacred narrative. St. Cyprian adds, "The sun was constrained to withdraw his rays and close his eyes that he might not be compelled to look upon this crime of the Jews." St. Chrysostom echoes, "The creature could not bear the wrong done to its creator. Therefore the sun withdrew his rays that he might not behold the deeds of the wicked." Mark 15:34. "And at the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, 'Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,' which is being interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" St. Mark uses the Aramaic form, while St. Matthew refers to the original Hebrew. This might be rendered, "Why didst thou forsake me?" Mark 15:35, "And some of them that stood by when they heard it said, Behold, he calleth Elias." Those who lingered around the cross, despite the mysterious darkness, are mentioned in verse 35. The darkness would certainly add to the dreadfulness of the situation. It was out of that darkness that the voice of Jesus was heard. As Elijah was believed to hold some relation to the Messiah, it was natural for some to understand Jesus' words as calling for Elias. Mark 15:36. "And one ran and filled a sponge full of vinegar and put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, Let alone. Let us see whether Elias will come to take him down. And Jesus cried with a loud voice and gave up the ghost. And the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. There were 2 veils, one before the holy place and the second before the Holy of Holies. The holy place would correspond to the nave of a church, where priests were always present. The Holy of Holies matched our chancel choir, the holiest part of the building, always kept closed, and only the high priest could enter once a year on the day of expiation. The veil that was rent at our Lord's death was the one placed before the Holy of Holies. It was the responsibility of the officiating priest on the evening of the day of preparation at the hour of evening prayer, which would correspond to the time of our Lord's death, to enter into the holy place. There, between the 2 curtains or veils, he would roll back the outer veil, exposing the sacred space to the people in the outer court. Then, to their amazement, they would witness the inner veil ripped apart from top to bottom. According to Josephus, these veils were immense, heavy, and beautifully embroidered with gold and purple. This tearing of the veil signified that the first dispensation with its rites and ceremonies was now uncovered by Christ, and henceforth the middle wall of partition was broken down. Now, not only Jews but also Gentiles could draw nigh by the blood of Christ. Additionally, it implied that the way to heaven was laid open by our Lord's death. When thou hadst overcome the sharpness of death, thou didst open the kingdom of heaven to all believers. Mark 15:39. And when the centurion who stood over against him saw that he so cried out and gave up the ghost, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." The centurion's job was to keep an eye on everything and ensure that the sentence was carried out. He must have been standing close to the cross. There was something in the dying sufferer's entire demeanor that was unlike anything he had ever seen before, eliciting the spontaneous cry, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." He had watched him through those weirdest of hours. He had seen the meekness and the dignity of the sufferer. He had heard those words so profoundly impressed upon the faith and reverence of Christians, which fell from him from time to time as he hung there. Finally, he heard the piercing cry, so startling and unexpected, which escaped him just before he yielded up his spirit. He could come to no other conclusion than that he was indeed God's Son. In just a few verses, Mark packs a lot of punch. There is much to say about the strange events that occurred. Today, we are drawn to the Roman officer who admired Jesus after he died. Jesus influenced those close to him. The thief on the cross had reacted uniquely to him, and now the soldier overseeing him had to remark that he was the Son of God. Jesus had kept his identity hidden at the beginning of his ministry. Now it was plain for everyone to see. This man truly was the Son of God. What a declaration for a Roman officer to make. If any of the religious leaders overheard him, they would have lost their minds. They had spent the previous day persuading Rome to execute Jesus precisely because he was blaspheming about being God's Son. It's one thing to recognize Jesus as the Son of God when he's alive. Peter recognized Jesus as the Messiah in Mark 8:29-30. And he saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Peter answereth and saith unto him, Thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man of him. When Jesus is alive, it's one thing to recognize him as the Son of God. It's another thing to recognize Jesus as the Son of God after the resurrection. Many people came to faith then, but to recognize Jesus as the Son of God when he is dead and all hope is gone. This Roman officer may be the only person to have done such a thing. So what happened to that Roman officer? We have no idea. I'm sure he had a lot on his mind in the days ahead, especially as word spread that Jesus was still alive. We need to realize that Jesus died for us. Do not reject him. Once you know him, once you've heard the gospel and rejected it, you can never be the same. It says that when the rich young ruler rejected Christ, he turned away grieved, emotionally disturbed, because when you reject the claims of Christ, that's a very serious thing. In the final moments of Jesus' life, as recorded in Mark 15:33-39, we witness a profound testament to his divine nature and sacrificial love. Despite enduring abandonment, ridicule, and immense suffering, Jesus' death on the cross brought about supernatural events, such as the darkening of the sky and the tearing of the temple veil, symbolizing the opening of heaven to all believers. The Roman officer's declaration, "Truly this man was the Son of God," underscores the transformative power of Christ's sacrifice, revealing his true identity even in death. This narrative invites us to recognize Jesus as the Son of God, to embrace the grace he offers, and to live in the hope and redemption that his crucifixion and resurrection provide for all who believe.